Recording. Alrighty, so number one, so far we have learned to evaluate business models of startups. Today we'll examine the business model decisions of a startup in a mature industry. As a group, begin by discussing the following questions. Was the VC industry attractive for A16? I don't know how to say that company name, A16Z, to enter in 2009? What was the competition like at the time? What was the typical fate of new entrants in the industry? Why was this so? And what were the trends for the VC fund performance during the time? The industry was not attractive to enter at the time. Competition, it was dominated by like the top three firms because they were bringing in like 90, oh my gosh, what was it? So it's dominated by the top 3% of the firms, and they were bringing in 95% of the returns. And then other unfavorable factors were that 40% of companies backed with VC funding failed, which is almost half of venture capital. Almost half of those companies failed, meaning that there was no return on those investments. And then only 40% of them had a moderate return rate, and just 20% produced high gains. So right off the bat, I think it's a very difficult market to enter, especially in 2009.
Yeah.
I actually was on the opposite side. I actually was when we were doing the answers for the case study, I actually wrote that it was an attractive. I did it based off of the entry point that they would have been entering. They came up with they would have had a business model that would have been attractive to the customers with unmet needs in the market. So like they were meeting the 95%, but they were trying to, I guess I kind of saw them more as a disruptive kind of a business and getting in there and trying to find the customers that were not satisfied with like the bigger companies, the incumbents, and that they were going to try to kind of upset that and bring in a product. I think another big plus for them is that they were a company that had been a consumer of that, so they saw kind of like a segment of that market that was very appealing to them. So that was, I mean, I get you're correct. Isn't like as a whole, it's not a very attractive market as a whole because of those those problems that you stated. But I think as a business, they saw like a business model that created kind of an attractive setting for them because of the way they structured their process and stuff.
Right. No, I agree with that because they came in with completely different ideas, completely different, like a different mindset than what was actually happening. They were able, because they're like, we need to be in the top 5%. How are we going to do that? So right off the bat, they're like, how can we get here? Because if we don't get here, we're not going to make money and it's not going to be successful. So right off the bat, they realize like, unless we're in the top 5%, this won't work. And so I think they understood as well that it's not a super attractive thing to enter, but if they can get in that specific range, then they hit gold. And I think they went to the drawing board and they just built their company around that initial goal. And they're like, how are we going to do this? What's going to be different so that we can actually make money and be successful?
Yeah, I guess that's what I was looking at, based off of what they were looking at as attractive, or else obviously why would they have done it?
Right, so, that makes sense, yeah.
The way they structured it was attractive, but the market in a whole was very unattractive. So, and that's going with what the next prompt is like, with all these entrenched incumbents and the catch-22, the silver lined, it's a 16ZC. How do they plan to succeed in this difficult environment? I think it was that we already kind of talked about that they had found, customers that had unmet needs, and they were going to create a VC company that would that would meet those needs that were not being fulfilled. So
I agree. Let's see. So what choices do technical? Or did I skip? Touch on that one. What choices do technical founders have for financing that they didn't have a decade before?
I think internet startup companies at the time were cheap. It was easy to just start up your own, and it may not get big fast because of that, but it's a cheap option.
Mm-hmm. So I did a little bit of reading on like financing that companies would do. They would have like seeding or angel funders or something like that. Basically like family, friends, just people that you talk to on the street. And they're just like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then it would go into like A, B, C, D funding. I didn't see in the study that there was a lot of options before that, but that's what I kind of learned is, at least that's how it is now as far as what they do.
yeah.
Let's see about number 2. VC firms compete on their ability to source, pick, and win. How does A16Z's business model influence these abilities compared to other VC firms?
With those three sections.
Yeah. So first one, think of source as the ability to get founders to come in the door seeking money. How does the way? So I guess initially, VC firms at the time were, I think I read 20% sourcing and 80% picking, and there wasn't very much on winning.
Yeah.
So they were just focused on picking the right deal more than anything. But A16Z, their approach, I think, was a lot more well-rounded and just totally different.
But I think they understood at the beginning. They said that they'd
I think everybody froze.
Mm-hmm.
I was stressed about it for the fact that like it wasn't. Man, my notes are butchered. Well, I think the difference is that they focused on like the operations to overcome some of the problems that are inherent in this process, because it's kind of like that idea that you don't want to be dictated by the outside problems, like the outside sources affecting you. So they were more focused on like their operations and making sure they overcome kind of some of those problems that are built in with the nature of the companies. Some of those problems, rather than focusing on picking the right people and right away, they focused on making sure that those picks were in the end a win, I think. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one way that they did that is they focused more on the strengths rather than how did they say that?
Well, they found companies that they didn't have to be training wheels for. I think they found companies that automatically, had the strengths to be able to make proper decisions without them having to kind of watch them.
Mm-hmm.
They made the right decision.
But that's still something that they implemented, is that win factor. They A16Z was still invested in their success to the point where they wouldn't just come in and babysit or anything, but they were like, if you guys are struggling, here's someone that you can connect with. And so they wanted to be a network for their investment companies, so that if a company was struggling or if they needed help or advice, they could reach out to someone else, in their network and get help. Which I think is really interesting, that VC firms at the time they were like, here's the money, we'll see you in 10 years type of thing.
Yeah, that was weird. Which
I think just blows my mind. I mean, they're at a high enough rate, like 20, 25%, where typically, they come off successful. But even just implementing a little bit of that win factor, and I think they did that in several different ways by respect. Like they had a lot of respect for the people that they were meeting with, and they went into that a lot, and how like there were fines if people were late, and just the meetings were just a completely different level. But also that they connected people with other successful companies or businesses so that they could be successful. And I think that played a huge part in their success, and it's something that they did completely differently than everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely had a different focus.
Yeah, because they were actually interested in the success of their investments, which
Because they were more interested in the win, like you said, they were more interested in the end, in 10 years rather than at the beginning, who they were
right.
picking from the get-go.
And I don't know, I was reading that and I was like, that's a no-brainer, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. And maybe that was just kind of a culture thing where they were just like,
Well, it said it in the case kind of where the fact that it didn't really show results for like another 10 years is the fact that they didn't focus on it, because there was no real way of
that makes
getting
sense.
that, like seeing the win until 10 years. So for the way they were looking at it is that, it was so far in the future that we need to focus on, how we make these, how we pick, how we do this, so that in the future, really if we pick correctly, we don't have to worry about the win, I think is what they were
That
thinking.
makes sense.
Which I think if you look in that sense, I think it made sense, but I think they just looked at that. I think both work, obviously the incumbents had like 95, they had a market, they had a business that was working and profitable, but there's just other ways to look at it, and I think they were more focused on the win, which allowed them to be successful because they were doing things a little differently than the people that were already like established in the company, in the market. So
I agree, yeah.
but
Let's see.
are we on number 3 now, or do we get?
How does operating team? So let's touch on this one really quick. How does the operating team help an A16Z source, pick, and win? Does it increase the odds of getting more high quality deal flow? If so, why? Does it affect the company's ability to pick winners? Does it actually have an impact on the odds of success? If so, how? If not, why do you think that? Trying to remember the structure of the operating team.
Well, that's what I was saying before, is that the operating team, that was where the difference was, is there. But let me read my notes. I think like in long term, it would be more like it is more of does increase the odds,
Mm-hmm.
because they are focused in the win. But like I said earlier, I think that like both ways work. I just think it's a different way of looking at it. I think it just depends on where your focuses are, where you want to be focused when you're running the companies, because they were more focused on the win, so they were more focused on, like, seeing the progression of the companies that they were taking, that they were working with.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yeah, so the operating team consisted of technical talent, executive talent, marketing. So they're very. I definitely think that the operating team helped. How did it say? Help the company pick winners, just because everyone was focused, and I think they had more of that long-term approach or a long-term view. So instead of, we need to just pick the right company today so that we don't have to worry about them 10 years from now, they were invested, for that 10 years or however long. So I think they had a longer vision of the relationship and all of that stuff. So I think in overall, the operating team definitely did help in that process. Yeah. If you were to put yourself in the shoes of, I can't say their names for some reason, these guys. You must decide whether or not to seek to double your assets under management. Voters agree. The decision must be unanimous. Consider the following as you decide. What do you guys think? Doubling assets or not doubling assets?
I remember what I put.
In my for my just my assessment, I put to double the assets
That's what I put too.
in favor.
That's what I did as well.
But I mean, these prompts are pretty. I mean, they're good to go over. Like, how many portfolio companies can one general partner reasonably support? I hadn't thought about that when I was doing the reading. But I mean, how did they specifically say how many they can reasonably support, and if they're where are they at according to that? Like, where are they
So typically
falling in?
Typically one will handle, I think, 10.
And where are they at now? Are they handling at 10, or are they handling at half of that? Because in order to double, they'd have to almost handle at 5, right?
Let's see here. Most venture capital partners sat on no more than 10 portfolio companies' boards. Beyond that point, they could be stretched too thin to be effective in advising the companies and at sourcing new deals. In light of this constraint, one way to grow a firm's assets under management without a one-to-one expansion in the number of general partners would be to increase the amount invested per portfolio company.
Okay.
So I mean that's a constraint in doubling. Let's see.
But is that a constraint that's going to affect them? Are they already maximizing that?
You know, I didn't see anything in the index or the exhibits.
Well, and it sounds like there are ways to get around that constraint in that description. It sounds like they can go for a higher investment, and but it didn't really sound like they could get more like general partners. It doesn't help just to keep adding. But
Right.
I think they could overcome that. I mean, I think that could work.
I think when I was writing up the biggest concern in the case is that they would lose touch and kind of fall apart from the inside out by growing too big. And obviously that's a struggle for a lot of big companies, that they're able to provide a service that's really great, but they kind of become complacent and they start to fall apart or become lazy or whatever on the inside. And that just kind of lets the company corrupt as a whole over time. But I think because of how invested they are in their processes, in the relationship with their companies, and just an overall, like, who they are as a company, I think they can handle the growth, but still be true to their process and to their goals and vision.
Yeah.
So
my thing is, I think they could double their assets if they wanted to. I just, at that point, I think the last prompt's important to think about is like they're actually going to be making more money from doing this. Like, I don't think there's anything stopping them from doubling their assets. Like, they can if they want to, but is it really going to? Where's that point of like diminishing returns? You know, if they're growing too big, like they said, is there any economies to scale it in this business? Like, in theory, you could always grow your assets. You could always just kind of grow your company and still have enough to go around. But because you'd have to hire more people, like I said, you'd have to hire more people. You have to hire, you have to do increasing your assets also increase your costs, and so at what point does actually? So with the question they asked, like, yeah, I do think it can be, like, they can increase them, but I think it's also important to think of if it's valuable to them, if it's going to really help their company or not, which it might not. But
That makes sense. What do you think, Kayla?
I definitely agree with that. I hadn't thought about it when writing my own paper, but it is a good point to consider.
I agree. Let's see. Anything else that you guys feel like we should touch on for these cases?
really, I don't know.
So
So what I'll submit the videos and then I'll write up so the other thing is the write up, and I'll just put that in there and just say that we obviously we're discussing it on the video, but
I took notes throughout the whole thing. I can just send them to you guys.
perfect.
Well, because we can put up like a shared Word document, can't we? On
Mhm.
Google.
In Google, yeah, I can just.
Isn't the assignment has like 4 questions that we have to answer?
It's just 2. So it says write convincing responses to the following questions. What should Stephen Carpenter have done differently that might have led to a successful venture? Give specific actions and expected results. General thoughts will not be sufficient. So instead of saying, well, he should have tested his stuff better, we would have to say, he should have done his MVP. This is what I would have done. This is what it would have looked like. This is, possible results that would have happened, that kind of thing.
And do we have to submit that assignment individually? Because the
video, all of
videos,
us have to submit it.
Okay. Well,
because the video is just one person, right?
Because we do.
It's kind of confusing because it says your team needs to email the meeting link to the instructor so your instructor can attend. Oh, oops. So they can attend the meeting. And then spend about an hour discussing the questions below. Please record your meeting and submit the link in a Word document.
Yeah.
That's not going to work because for some reason these are not recording as like a link.
Mine says it's recording.
So it's recording.
I have a little red dot telling me it is.
It's recording, but it's not saving it to the cloud like it's saving it to my actual computer. Actually, what I can do
could you upload it to either YouTube or Google Drive and use that link?
I can do that. I'll do that. I just don't know. It used to let me just like record it to the cloud, but it doesn't let me do that.
They went through and changed a lot of stuff recently because I had that same issue last semester.
So I've never been good at technology, so I'm not much help there.
Yeah, let's open up. Do you guys have Gmail accounts?
Yeah.
I have my own Gmail account. We want to create like a connected one, and
you actually, Kayla, would you do that?
It's getting there. Sorry.
No,
I can pull that up real quick.
And then that way we can all put in just different things that we would do, specific things.
You guys can add in anything that I missed. You want to give me your email real quick?
Okay, so I just give it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, mine's BAVTP5@gmail.com.
Okay. And then, David, yours?
Mine is David.Hartshorn, HARTSHORN.
SHORN?
Yeah. 1@gmail.com.
All right. And let me know if you guys get those. If not, I can try it again. My computer's being wacky right now.
So yeah, I will upload these videos, and then if we can just put in our responses, I don't think that's due till tomorrow, but I'm probably just going to jump in and do it now just so that.
Yeah. Do we want like a time we want to set until we kind of all have made the change we want to and then submit it?
Yeah.
Like today, but the latest, like tomorrow morning, it should all be ready to submit, kind of a thing.
What if we do like tomorrow morning by 11? Is that okay with everyone?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of us will copy that and paste that on individually and submit it, right? Is that what that is?
Right.
Okay.
I think
The
so.
video's
I'll
technically
put it-
one person.
I'll put a note in my.
I'm confused just because we are putting the video link in this. So I don't know if it is supposed to be everyone or just one. It doesn't hurt for all of us to put it in, though.
Let me.
Worst thing that happens is he tells us we only need it once.
Isn't there two different assignments? Like one specifically the video and one specifically the. Maybe I didn't get that right when I
Yeah,
was looking at it.
one is. Let's see here. I'm opening it back up. So one of them is end of week.
Because right here it's saying like, so
Group.
there's like the. This is one that's saying like write convincing responses. As a group, compose your responses in a Word document and submit the write-up to your instructor. So that one only has a thing for the write-up. And then I think there's another one separate that's for the video. But that one, even that one didn't really specify whether it was a single or a group submission.
Group attendance.
I think that one is just the group.
And then there's another one that doesn't really have any instructions, huh? It's like it's just instructions and there's nothing, and then there's like a upload. That doesn't make any sense.
So one of them. So oh my gosh. In this activity, you will complete a group assignment about the case studies. The purpose is to create convincing responses using key concept. Your instructor will review and grade the assignment. As a group, review the concepts. Oh, so this one we need to review business model and analysis, hypothesis-driven entrepreneurship, and beating the odds. And given those three articles that are not case studies, we write convincing responses to the following questions. As a group, compose your responses in a Word document and submit the write-up to your instructor.
Yeah.
So either way, I think it'll be fine if we all submit it, but I think he'll be like, yeah, just one person needs to submit it.
Yep.
I guess if anything, we could set up a really quick Zoom meeting tomorrow at noon, maybe if it works for you guys, and double check everything. But
I won't be able to. I forgot I have meetings most of tomorrow.
I'm going to be on a plane tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Fun.
Yeah.
So that should work at least for this week, because it's not about the cases, right? It's about the readings that we did.
So
I have to the cases. Like they had a little readings before the case and then the case. So
right.
All right.
So he just wants to make sure that we're able to understand and implement what we're reading into the case, and yeah.
Okay.
So, well, sweet guys.
Sounds good.
So we'll do that before 11 tomorrow, and have a great Friday. It's Friday.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. All right.
All righty. See you guys. Good meeting you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.